So would you believe it that maximizer and restorative share the same goal? You heard that right. Both of them are interested in self-improvement, but they go about it completely differently. And the way they do that has a significant impact on the personality and psychology of a person. So in this video, I'm going to unpack the contrast between the two and essentially try and share some thoughts around how you'd coach someone with one or the other dominant. Now, it is highly unusual to find both themes in the top 10. It does occur, I've seen it, but it's rare. It's perhaps slightly more common in the top 15, but certainly extremely rare in the top 10 and almost unheard of in the top 5. But either way, regardless of where they sit in the order, what I'm going to recommend you do is to pay attention to which theme is dominant, which is ranked higher, to understand how this is going to impact somebody. So the key in understanding the difference between maximizer and restorative is really the domains in which they sit. So maximizer, and let me start there, sits in the influencing domain. The influencing domain is around drive, motivational energy, and perpetual progress. So that'll give a clue around the energy or nature of maximizer. It really is a motivational energy. It is waking up in the morning and going, what am I going to work on today? And the instinct of maximizer is to motivate an individual to draw out their greatest potential. So the motivational energy of maximizer is orientated towards the realization of the potential they sense sits within themselves and others. And so there has to be something there for them to draw it out. And this is exactly what maximizers do. They can sense that there is something there that could be polished. In the words of a maximizer, you cannot put in what God left out. In other words, you have to have something there to work on. This is where the concept of playing to one's strengths comes in with maximizer. The idea is that there is something there, a talent, and you can optimize that talent by doing something with it. In contrast, the restorative theme is a executing theme. All executing themes have an end in mind, and so does restorative. Restorative has a very specific sense of what needs to be fixed and what it looks like when it's fixed. So, as counterintuitive as it might be to you listening, unless you have dominant restorative, a person with dominant restorative, particularly in their top 10, is going to get up in the morning and look for what's wrong. They're going to look for what's wrong in them as well. And the classic concept of what's wrong is something called a weakness. So they are quite delighted to discover their weaknesses. In fact, I've often seen people with dominant restorative, as soon as they've seen their CliftonStrengths report, immediately look at the bottom 5 and ask, how do I fix that? Or what does that mean? To go back to the elemental nature of restorative, they are working off a template and they want to improve it. So the idea basically about a weakness is it's a weakness because someone's told you it's a weakness. And so they work quite extensively off the social impact of their lives. In other words, whoever's influenced them socially around what they should or shouldn't be, what strength is and what weakness is, essentially they have been acclimatized to identifying factors within them that need to be fixed. And they will set about fixing it. And if they've got learner, it will be through the acquisition of skills. But the basic elemental nature of restorative is that they are comfortable with the concept of weakness. Now, both themes can have quite an impact on the psychology of a person. If we look at maximizer, it can lead to an excessive overemphasis on certain attributes and certain traits at the neglect of others. And so maximizers struggle with the concept of doing something that they aren't inherently gifted to do. And that can mean that they don't really enjoy the concept of tackling their weaknesses. They don't really like the thought of doing things that they know they can't do. So it sounds really strange, but a maximizer can be quite belligerent about what they're going to focus on. And even if there are character flaws or weaknesses or aspects of their lives that they are lacking, if it doesn't play to their particular strengths, they can be remarkably, as I say, belligerent about doing nothing about it. It is only when those factors impact their area of strength that they will perhaps focus on it. So this can really lead to a single mindedness or a one dimensional aspect of what they do and how they do it. If they've got learner, then what they're going to do is they're obviously going to try and use skill development to grow their area of talent. Now, the impact that restorative has is quite different. Restorative obviously is obsessed with weakness. So to what that can lead to is a significant negative mindset if they focus on the wrong weakness or something that cannot be fixed. So, for example, and to give a trivial example, it might not be that trivial actually. If I feel there is something wrong with my body, that it is not how society suggests it should look, and I've got a weakness in this particular area, then I will try and fix it. And the idea really around that is that, as I said earlier, they need to restore their bodies to a template of how we should look, how we should be, and how we should function. So, one of the challenges working with restorative is you cannot really say to them you can't focus on weakness because that's what the talent is. So, what you have to do is you have to say to them very simply, work on the correct weakness. And so, what I've come to do when I'm working with someone dominant restorative is I ask them the simple question: what aspect of your talent is holding you back? So, where in your natural ability are you weak? And that seems to have a significant impact on getting them to focus on the correct area of development. The other areas, I get them to interrogate their assumptions around what we are and what we're not supposed to be, because I think that's key in terms of helping a restorative person understand, or someone dominant in restorative, understand what they should and should not work on. So I hope that helps. I think it is quite fascinating for me to see how they are driven with the same intention, but they use completely different methods.